Hello and welcome to today's PharmAust Investor webinar, discussing numerous recent developments with the company. All participants are in a listen-only mode. There will be a presentation lasting for approximately 10 to 15 minutes, followed by Q&A. With the feedback and questions that have been received, we've tried to address as much of this as possible within the initial presentation. If you have a question you'd like to submit, please feel free to type it in using the Q&A function on the Zoom app. Please note this session is being recorded. On behalf of PharmAust today, we have the Managing Director, John Clark. I'll now hand it over to John.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome to today's PharmAust Investor Update webinar. Thank you very much for taking the time to join today. I'm certainly very much looking forward to having the opportunity to present and provide an update on the future of PharmAust. So first, just a disclaimer, and just to reiterate, this applies to this presentation and the information contained within it. So moving on to the corporate overview slide, as you can see here with the share price performance, capital structure, figures, and the update to the board and management, on which I will move on to later in the slide deck and provide further information around those changes. Now, moving on to this slide, essentially no doubt it's one that many are already familiar with, but I do just want to take the opportunity to reiterate that PharmAust does continue to position itself as a global player in neurodegenerative diseases. The recent very positive phase 1 study results has highlighted the potential for Monopanter in the way that we treat motor neuron disease, ALS. Again, just to reiterate, as has been stated previously, we are one pivotal registration study away from potentially being in a position to receive either accelerated or full approval from regulatory agencies and commercialization of Monopanter. Human health and MND, ALS specifically, does remain our primary focus. Due to price differential between human and veterinary product, it is a sound strategy for value creation for shareholders and meets the significant unmet need in the human population. Also, and I'll touch upon this further on the slide deck, we do have in place an experienced world-class board and management team, a team that will ensure that the company is able to move forward to the next stage. So before introducing the team, I would like to firstly acknowledge the previous board members, Dr. Roger Aston, Mr. Robert Bishop, Mr. Sam Wright, Mr. Neville Bassett, and Dr. Tom Duthie for their contributions to PharmAust. I would like to thank them for their service, some of them over the course of many years, and we certainly wish them all the best for the future. If I can also now introduce Mr. Sergio Bicchini as Chairman and Mr. Marcus Hughes as Non-Executive Director. Sergio brings a decade of board-level experience with expertise spanning multiple sectors. He has held multiple executive and board roles and has extensive experience in strategy, governance, and capital access. He will certainly be an invaluable addition to the team in terms of our intentions to advance our clinical programs. And Marcus brings more than 20 years experience with listed companies and possesses extensive corporate finance experience. So the new additions to the board will bring the drive, requisite experience, and skill set that will allow for the continual development of Monopanter and the success of PharmAust at this pivotal stage for the company. These changes will certainly give us the opportunity to complement our board and open our doors to fresh perspectives, skills, and knowledge in line with corporate governance principles. With regards to the management team, there has been no changes of late, but I can reassure that PharmAust certainly plans to continue to strengthen the management team in due course. I have continued in my role to ensure that the operations has continued with the support of Dr. Herbert Brinkman, Head of Manufacturing, Dr. Carol Worth, CMC Operations Manager, and a host of consultants who work feverishly to ensure that we continue to progress forward. Now, with regards to the pipeline, so we, as I said before, are at a pivotal stage now where we look to move forward on the single pivotal registration study for motor neuron disease, having concluded our phase 1. So I'll come to more detail on the planned phase 2/3 study later. But we are, as I said, targeting accelerated approval from that phase 2 data and with the potential for FDA approval in 2026. In addition to the lead program on ALS, we've also commenced identifying our next target indication in other neurodegenerative diseases. And we're at those early stages of liaising with potential third-party providers, stakeholders on preclinical aspects of that. So again, a slide that I'm sure many are familiar with, but I just want to take the opportunity to reiterate that MND ALS, as we are aware, is always fatal. There is no cure. Life expectancy is just over 2 years on average. There is a very real unmet need for patients that are afflicted with MND ALS. By 2040, the incidence is expected to increase by 70%. To further compound matters, Relyvrio has been removed from the market recently. Of the drugs that remain, there's only 3 available on the market, all of which provide limited relief. So the landscape has changed, obviously, with Relyvrio, and further provides PharmAust and Monopanzer an opportunity to progress the products and hopefully bring to market over the coming years. So a quick recap on the phase 1 study. Just to reiterate, as per the conclusions that were released earlier this year, the study demonstrated excellent safety and tolerability profile. There was preliminary efficacy data that indicated a possible slowing of the rate of disease progression, albeit in 12 patients. In addition to superior safety, tolerability, and preliminary efficacy data, suggests possible competitive advantage against those other approved drugs on the market. Included, in addition to that, obviously the survival and how it may prolong a patient's life expectancy. So after conclusion of the phase 1 study, those 12 patients rolled on to compassionate use. And then over recent months, we have commenced the open label extension study. So 10 patients to date have rolled onto the 12-month open label extension study, and treatment continues to be well tolerated. We have an 11th patient has confirmed that they would like to continue onto the open label extension study, and that's is anticipated within the next week or 2. So we anticipate that the open label extension study will be fully enrolled by the end of this month. Once we have that 11th and final patient enrolled, we will be intending to release additional survival data and updated ALS FRSR data on the back of the baseline scores, and that will be generated by Berry consultants and will be expected again within the coming weeks. So just to recap again, the first group of 6 patients are now entering their 19th month of continuous treatment with Monopanzer, which is really very reassuring and obviously adds to our optimism for the product moving forward. The phase 1 data and the baseline open label extension data is being used obviously to design our global registration adaptive phase 2/3 study that is on track to commence in the second half of this year. Now, somewhat hot off the press, and I'm sure many would have seen the announcement come out just an hour ago, but PharmAust did receive orphan drug designation from the FDA today. So that's obviously a terrific achievement for the company and will make a significant difference for us moving forward. So just to provide a little bit of color around what this is, the FDA has authority to grant orphan drug designation to a drug or biological product to prevent, diagnose, or treat a rare disease or condition. So that status is in place to encourage companies to develop safe and effective treatments for rare diseases and disorders. By being granted this orphan drug designation status, PharmAust is now eligible for several incentives, as you can see here bulleted. So that includes tax credits for qualified clinical trials, exemptions from user fees, and a potential for 7 years market exclusivity. Now, whilst we were expecting the orphan drug designation, we were certainly very confident. We must admit that this was indeed granted sooner than expected. There's a 90-day window, and that window was not due to elapse until the 10th of June. So we are close to a month earlier than anticipated. Somewhat surprised at the pace, but I think indicative of the quality of the application. Essentially, it was a seamless process supported by compelling phase 1 data. This designation now provides PharmAust with an even stronger pathway forward for Monopantel, particularly in light of recent failures of other approved treatments. We are now increasingly optimistic as we progress to our pivotal registration phase 2/3 study, which will, as I said, commence in the second half of this year. And here we have a slide on the pivotal registration phase 2/3 study, which has been named the STRIKE study. This is intended to be a standalone global study, and the timelines do remain on track. We are in the process and have been now for some time collaborating with key opinion leaders, highly regarded stakeholders. We have formed our scientific advisory board and have already conducted our first meeting to discuss the design of that trial. As you would have seen from an earlier announcement in the year, on that scientific advisory board, we have Leonard van der Berg, Sabrina Paganoni, Chris Freitag, and Melanie Quintana, key opinion leaders in both motor neuron disease and also within the statistical review of data. So we've included the scientific advisory board members to ensure that the design is as rigorous and gives us the best opportunity to achieve the necessary endpoints to satisfy the regulators' requirements for approval. We had a recent trip to the US, had the opportunity to meet with many of those potential stakeholders, had discussions to ensure that we do utilize gold standard methods, supplemented by potential digital technology, the latest that is available, to ensure that this trial is as effective and efficient, and to ensure that it does minimize the burden on the patients, which is really first and foremost in everyone's minds. Once this trial is rolled out, it will ensure and enable PharmAust the best opportunity to deliver a successful trial that may lead, as I said before, to accelerated or full approval and then subsequent commercialization of Monopantel. As I said before, this will be a standalone trial, and as you can see there on the bottom left, the intention is that this trial will be global. We have targeted, obviously, Australia, but also sites within the US and the EU. And we've already had the opportunity to meet with the NEALS Consortium out of the US and also TRICAL's network out of the EU. And again, that's through our connections with Sabrina Paganoni and Leonard van der Berg. With regards to the study plan, as you can see there, the plan is for an adaptive 24-week and 48-week trial. The intent there being that there will be an interim analysis at week 24 for success or futility. The FDA has informed that there is the potential for approval on the back of 24 weeks. So there is certainly, as I said, potential there for that accelerated approval. At this stage, we plan for 200 plus participants to be randomized 2-to-1. Okay, moving on. So in summary, with regards to our timeline, as you are now aware, we've received our orphan drug designation as planned for this quarter. There will be further updates with regards to the open label extension study, with regards further survival data, and also the ALS FRSR analysis on the back of baseline once that's 11th patient enrolled and the study is fully complemented. We've had recent hires on board, and there'll be further additions to the management team in due course. And then in addition to that, a further expansion of the pipeline. Moving forward, Q3, the plan still remains very much on track for approval of the phase 2/3 STRIKE study. EMA CTA plan to open an IND with the FDA, OMPD, remain on track for the validation batches for the manufacturing of the tablets, and then for later in the year, first STRIKE patient to be dosed. So in summary, this obviously is a great opportunity for PharmAust. There is very much a clear development pathway for Monopantel, with the potential for accelerated approval off the back of this phase 2/3 STRIKE study. As I said before, there is very much an unmet need with only a small handful of approved products currently available. We are indeed and continue to be very optimistic about the potential for Monopantel and look forward to what the future may hold. I would like now, please, to acknowledge the support received from all of our partners and supporters, by MND, who are integral in our phase 1 trial, and MND Australia. In addition, obviously also our phase 1 open label extension clinical trial sites, Susan Mathers at Calvary Bethlehem and Dominic Rowe at Macquarie University, who continued to be incredibly engaged. And finally, the patients, for whom we wouldn't be here now without their willingness and support to give up their time and effort on the studies. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thanks, John. We'll now move on to the Q&A portion of this session. The questions are based on some frequently asked questions that have been sent through via email recently and using the Q&A function. So again, if you have a question you'd like to submit, please feel free to do so. John, the first question I have is, what's the status of funding for the company as it plans for the phase 2/3 trial?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Well, certainly a variety of options are being considered at this stage, but I can certainly inform that there's a lot of interest to be involved in the Monopentel program, and we remain in active dialogue on that. So we're very confident on funding for the company as we now move forward and continue to plan for our phase 2/3 trial.
Thank you. The next question is the company's strategy to seek a buyout or partnership for Monopentel or to bring it to market yourself?
So certainly the plan is very much continues to be so that we continue to take the drug to a commercial outcome ourselves. Although having said that, certainly the board will consider any offer on its merits and make the best decision in the interests of all shareholders, with a view to maximising the end outcome at full value. So we won't be reliant on that for success. So as I said, we plan very much to be in this for the long haul and take this through as a standalone.
Thank you. The next question is, what is the status of patents for Monopentel and how does that impact the strategy for PharmAust moving forward?
So we do have currently granted patents for method of use for Monopentel for treatment of neurodegenerative diseases. We've got another patent application currently under prosecution for expedited review with the US Patent Office that we anticipate hearing from later this year. So that's for a more specific claim around the treatment of ALS and more broadly motor neuron disease.
The next question is, will the Investor Hub platform again be utilised to keep shareholders informed?
Yeah, certainly. We do appreciate the many inquiries that have been raised by the Investor Hub, and we will continue to address those questions raised. We've obviously been in a bit of a transitionary period over the last few weeks, but many questions raised, and we've had a bit to talk through, but absolutely, we will be now moving forward and we'll be continuing to liaise via Investor Hub.
Next question is, can you discuss the strategy for marketing the company to investors, including using Hot Copper and other platforms?
Well, absolutely, yeah, the board does acknowledge the platform, and a lot of shareholders do subscribe and utilise it. So we will be undertaking a review and planning the market engagement strategy moving forward from here. So this continues to evolve and we'll continue to keep you posted as we move forward.
The next question is, did Michael Thurn resign from the company or was he pushed out?
No, Michael Thurn was not pushed out and did resign from PharmAust, as announced at the time.
And what is the status of the outgoing CEO, Michael Thurn? Is there substance to the rumour of his return on a permanent basis?
So Michael Thurn remains as a full-time employee with PharmAust and is currently seeing out his notice period. He continues to provide support to myself and the wider team to ensure that we remain on track with the program and provide as much support to ensure that that's the case.
All right, thanks, John, and thanks to everyone who's submitted questions. We know there's been a lot of questions recently, and if there's further inquiries, we again encourage everyone to use Investor Hub to submit these, and John and the team will endeavour to respond. But John, I'll hand it back to you to just provide a closing comment.
Thank you, Matt. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much to everyone for dialing in and showing interest in PharmAust. Just to recap again, obviously there's much positive news and we continue to look to the future. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great day and a good weekend. Speak again soon. Thank you.